These are WWE wrestlers with permanent injuries. Some of them pushed through the pain, others never wrestled again. But every single one paid the price for stepping into the ring. Number 12. Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is one of the most physically intimidating superstars WWE has ever seen. Towering at 6 feet 8 inches and weighing over 340 pounds, he seemed invincible. But what fans didn't realize was that Braun spent his entire career carrying a brutal, life-changing injury. Before Strowman ever debuted on WWE TV, he suffered a ruptured L5-S1 disc in his lower back. The injury was so severe, it completely paralyzed his left leg. He underwent emergency surgery to save it, and doctors were only able to recover 85% functionality. That means Braun wrestled his whole career with a 15% paralyzed left leg, and never told fans until much later. In a 2024 interview, he revealed, "Before I even debuted on TV, I ruptured my L5-S1, which paralyzed my left leg 100%. Had emergency surgery. I got 85% of it back. On top of that, Braun has a metal plate and 4 screws in his neck, 2 elbow surgeries, fake teeth from in-ring accidents, and a list of match-related scars, including injuries from going through windshields during Wyatt family segments. During a last man standing match against Bronson Reed, Braun tore his groin just 2 minutes in, but still wrestled for another 20. Despite his dedication, WWE released Braun in 2025, and many believe it was due in part to his lingering injuries. Watching back his matches, you can see moments where he limps or favors one leg, not as part of a storyline, but as a man pushing through real pain. Number 11. Hulk Hogan. For decades, the image of Hulk Hogan dropping the big leg was synonymous with victory. It was his finishing move, the final punctuation in every match. But behind that legendary pose was an injury that would haunt Hogan for the rest of his life. The leg drop might have looked simple, but landing on his lower spine night after night for over 20 years caused severe compression, nerve damage, and chronic back issues. Hogan would later admit that the move completely destroyed his back, and he's undergone at least a dozen surgeries to try and repair the damage. In interviews, Hogan has said, "I probably should have used the sleeper hold instead of the leg drop. If I could go back, I would." The spinal compression from that single move led to decades of chronic pain, reduced mobility, and frequent hospital visits. At times, Hogan required assistance just to walk. His iconic finisher may have helped him win championships, but it also took away his physical freedom. Even now, long after his in-ring days are over, Hogan's movement is limited, and he continues to deal with the effects of a decision made early in his career, a reminder that sometimes the most legendary moves come at the greatest cost. Number 10. Mick Foley. Mick Foley's body is a roadmap of punishment. From barbed wire and thumbtacks to being thrown off Hell in a Cell, he redefined hardcore wrestling. But one of the most shocking injuries he ever suffered happened far from WWE cameras, in Japan, in 1994. During a match with Vader, Foley got caught in the ring ropes performing a routine hangman spot. But the ropes were tightened too much that night. As he twisted to escape, the tension tore off part of his right ear. Moments later, Vader hit him, and the rest of the ear ripped off completely. The referee picked it up off the mat and placed it in his pocket. That's just the beginning. Over the years, Foley endured multiple concussions, hip and knee replacements, countless stitches, and lost teeth. He still walks with a limp and has difficulty with basic mobility. But through it all, Foley never stopped giving his body to the business. Even now, when you see him smile in interviews or tell stories at conventions, you can see it. He's proud. But he's also permanently changed. The price of being a legend wasn't just pain, it was pieces of himself left behind in the ring. Number 9. Stone Cold. Steve Austin. Steve Austin's career was on fire in the late 90s, until one moment at SummerSlam 1997 changed everything. During a match against Owen Hart, Austin took a botched sit-down piledriver that drove his head into the mat, resulting in a broken neck and severe spinal damage. He was temporarily paralyzed in the ring, barely able to move his arms. Somehow he finished the match and walked out on his own, but the damage was permanent. The injury caused nerve damage, chronic pain, and muscle weakness, especially in his upper body. Austin was forced to abandon his technical style in favor of a brawling, strike-heavy approach, which became his signature during the Attitude Era. He underwent surgery in 1999 and again in 2000, but his neck never fully recovered. By 2003, he retired after WrestleMania 19. Even during his surprise return at WrestleMania 38 in 2022, his style remained cautious. Fans knew that neck was still fragile. Austin has admitted he lived in constant fear of one wrong bump ending his life. He gave everything to wrestling, and the broken neck he left with? It's a reminder of just how real the risks were, even for the toughest guy in the business. Number 8. The Great Khali. When the Great Khali debuted in WWE in 2006, he was marketed as a monstrous force, standing over 7 feet tall and towering over the likes of The Undertaker and John Cena. What many fans don't realize is that before he arrived in WWE, Khali could actually move. In his earlier career in Japan and India, he was shockingly nimble for his size. But a knee injury around the time of his WWE debut changed everything. The injury significantly limited his mobility, forcing WWE to completely rework his in-ring style. No more stepping over the top rope with ease, no more dynamic offense. From then on, Khali's matches were built around slow movement, chops, and one big power move. It wasn't laziness, it wasn't bad booking. It was a permanent injury that kept him grounded, literally. The damage to his knee never fully healed, and as he got older, it became clear that his ability to walk was increasingly affected. In later appearances, he could barely move around the ring without assistance. Khali went from a potentially dominant giant with surprising athleticism to a barely mobile attraction, all because of one injury that robbed him of agility at the worst possible time. Number 7. Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is widely considered one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time, but even HBK couldn't avoid permanent damage, and in his case, it all came down to one mistimed kick to the face. At Unforgiven 2004, during a match against Kane, Michaels took a massive big boot to the head. The blow caused damage to the muscle behind his eye, resulting in a permanent lazy eye, a condition that gradually worsened over the years. Fans began to notice the change in his appearance, especially in backstage segments and close-ups. Instead of hiding it, WWE leaned into the visual difference. During his iconic feud with Chris Jericho in 2008, the company even wrote the lazy eye into the storyline, claiming Jericho's actions caused the damage. But in reality, it was that single moment with Kane that altered Michaels' face forever. To be clear, the injury never stopped him from performing. Michaels went on to have some of the best matches of his career after the injury. But the lazy eye became part of his legacy, a visible reminder of the real risks taken in the ring, even by the best. Today, even in retirement, that eye remains unchanged. A small detail to some, but to HBK, it's a permanent badge of sacrifice. Number 6. The Big Show. When you're built at over 7 feet tall and weigh more than 400 pounds, it's only a matter of time before your body starts to break down. And for the Big Show, that time hit hard, specifically in his knees. After decades of working in WCW, WWE, and later AEW, Big Show's body began to show signs of extreme wear. Fans started noticing something alarming during his AEW appearances. One of his knees was visibly deformed, almost collapsed inward compared to the other. The difference was jarring, especially when he struggled to walk down ramps or get into the ring. In an interview with Metro UK, Big Show revealed that he had been dealing with the bad knee for 12 years before finally having it replaced. He compared it to driving on a bald tire, knowing it could give out at any moment, but pushing forward anyway. That knee was bad for 12 years. It could have gone any day. It finally popped at one point. Big Show had to use a wheelchair just to get around before he underwent full knee replacement surgery. And even with that procedure, the long-term damage remains. It affects how he walks, how he moves, and it's clear that his giant frame has taken a brutal toll on his joints. Though he still appears in wrestling-related content and occasionally in-ring segments, the days of Big Show moving freely are long gone. His massive size made him a spectacle, but it also meant that his knees were doomed from day one. Number 5. Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston is known for being one of WWE's most consistent, athletic, and positive performers. His high-flying style and energy have made him a fan favorite for over a decade. But if you look closely, there's something different about Kofi's body now compared to when he debuted. And it's all due to one stiff chop. In the early days of his WWE career, Kofi had a well-defined chest. But during a match with Big Show, Kofi took a chop so hard it caused his sternum to cave in. The result was a permanent condition known as pectus excavatum, or sunken chest. Kofi explained the injury on the New Day podcast. "I had a real live chest. I remember getting chopped so hard in the chest, and my chest has never been the same since." Unlike many injuries on this list, Kofi's doesn't affect his in-ring performance. He can still fly, flip, and deliver matches like always. But his chest has a permanent dent, a visible reminder of what happens when you take one of the hardest chops in the business. It's not career-ending, it's not debilitating, but it's permanent. And every time Kofi wrestles without a shirt, you see the mark that one moment left behind. Number 4, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is one of the greatest wrestlers to ever step foot in the ring. An Olympic gold medalist, multi-time WWE champion, and technical wizard. But his legend didn't come without serious sacrifice, especially to his neck and spine. Kurt famously won the 1996 Olympic gold medal with a broken neck. That's not hype, that's real. He had fractured vertebrae, herniated discs, and nerve damage, but still competed and won. When he got to WWE, things didn't get easier. Over the years, Angle suffered multiple neck injuries, some of which required fusion surgery. Others he tried to work through with intense pain medication. "I was getting 12 shots of Novocaine in my neck before matches," Kurt once admitted. He developed spinal stenosis, experienced numbness in his limbs, and eventually became addicted to painkillers, taking dozens of pills a day just to function. Even when he returned for his late career WWE run, his movement was noticeably stiffer. The toll of years spent suplexing, bumping, and absorbing punishment was evident. Kurt's neck issues weren't a one-time accident, they were a career-long burden. He gave everything to wrestling, and now lives with the permanent consequences. Number 3. Droz. Darren Droz. Drozdov was a former NFL player turned WWE star on the rise. With a unique look, real charisma, and the backing of Vince McMahon himself, Droz seemed destined for a big future in the company. He had already been featured in the documentary Beyond the Mat, where McMahon laughed while explaining his vomit on command gimmick. But all of that came to a tragic halt on October 5th, 1999, during a SmackDown taping. That night, Droz was facing D'Lo Brown in what should have been a routine mid-card match. But when D'Lo went for a running powerbomb, something went horribly wrong. Some say Droz's loose shirt interfered with the lift. Others say it was a timing issue. Either way, Droz came down awkwardly on his head and fractured 2 vertebrae in his neck. He was instantly paralyzed from the neck down. He never walked again. Despite the horror of what happened, Droz never blamed D'Lo. In fact, he defended him publicly, saying accidents happen in wrestling and that he knew the risks going in. He remained in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, but continued to live with grace, working behind the scenes with WWE and offering inspiration to countless others facing similar adversity. When Droz passed away in 2023, he left behind a legacy of strength and forgiveness. His story stands as one of the clearest examples of how quickly everything can change in a wrestling ring, and how deep the sacrifices really go. Number 2, Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash built his career on being the cool, towering enforcer, first as Diesel in WWE, then as a founding member of the NWO and WCW. But behind the swagger and the charisma was a body slowly falling apart. Standing nearly 7 feet tall and performing night after night took a brutal toll on Nash's joints, especially his knees and hips. As time went on, those joints began to deteriorate. Bone-on-bone grinding became a way of life. Over the years, Nash underwent multiple knee surgeries and even hip realignment procedures. He would later reveal that one of the surgeries was so painful that it left him unable to walk properly for months. He publicly described himself as basically crippled. And you could see it whenever he made an appearance. His limp, his slowed movement, his discomfort. The man who once ruled 2 wrestling promotions could barely move without pain. Eventually, Nash had no choice but to retire from in-ring competition. Not because he wanted to, but because his body gave him no other option. Today, he still shows up for events, signs autographs, and speaks candidly about the physical cost of the business. Kevin Nash might have been one of the coolest men in wrestling history, but behind the sunglasses in big matches was a man whose knees and hips were shattered by the grind. Number 1. Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd was a wrestler's wrestler, technical, crisp, and widely respected by everyone from Bret Hart to Cesaro. A product of the legendary Hart Dungeon, he was seen as the last of a dying breed. But in 2015, during a dark match before Raw, everything changed forever. Kidd stepped into the ring with Samoa Joe, who was making his unofficial debut on the main roster. The match ended with Joe's signature move, the Muscle Buster. It was a move Joe had performed safely hundreds of times, but on this night, it went horribly wrong. Kidd's neck absorbed the impact, and he suffered one of the most catastrophic spinal cord injuries in wrestling history. Doctors told him he had a 5% chance of survival. 5%. Not only did he survive, but he walked again. That in itself was a miracle. But his in-ring career was over. Kidd underwent extensive surgery to repair the damage: metal rods, screws, staples. His neck was rebuilt, but his wrestling days were finished. Quietly, WWE transitioned him into a backstage producer role, where he now helps lay out matches for today's stars. His influence is still felt every night, just not in front of the camera. To this day, fans still don't realize how close Tyson Kidd came to dying in the ring. What he went through isn't just one of the scariest injuries in WWE history. It's one of the most sobering. And it stands as the final entry in a list of men whose bodies paid the ultimate price for our entertainment. These weren't just injuries. They were turning points, career-ending moments, life-altering traumas. Some of these wrestlers pushed forward, others never returned. But all of them, every single one, left the ring with something they'll carry forever. If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more wrestling stories every week.